Do you live in the US and want an easy way to eat well and save money this year? Well, our discount might just be the one for you. HelloFresh is the US #1 meal kit service and delivers fast, fresh, and affordable food to your door. So why have the cost of takeout or that horrible trip to the grocery store? Just get it delivered to you and have a hassle-free dinner of the highest quality.
So why not check out HelloFresh? Click the link down below for your special discount.
Hello and welcome along to match day 37 of Championship predictions from the Honest Football Podcast. The turnaround is quick as we edge towards an international break with a full midweek fixture list to come in England's second tier. Before we go and look at the 12 games ahead though, let's have a quick recap of what happened last weekend and how we all got on, because yet again we're getting to this stage of the season with a run in now. There's bizarre results everywhere, the scorelines aren't what we're expecting, and it was another low-scoring week across the board. For me, one perfect score, 6 points in total. The score was Swansea City 1, Middlesbrough 3. Didn't look like that for a while, but another famous Swansea defensive collapse allowed Middlesbrough to get us 3 points. We also were very happy to be wrong with Luton, who won at Sheffield United, so no complaints about that. The only winner, though, this week, and just above us on 7 points, is Tony, who's back in form. Won it a few weeks ago with some incredible scores. This time, just the 7 points. But the Championship's favourite scoreline, it was the saviour. Coventry won, Hull 1, getting him 3 points. W&G fan on 5-1 behind me. Gordon level on 6 as well. It was a tight weekend, and again, a very tough one to predict. So let's see how this midweek does by comparison. 12 games, including 6 on Tuesday night. And we start with the first of them. It is Blackpool versus QPR. A game that before Saturday was huge at the bottom. Now it's just big rather than that. It's starting to look like the bottom 3 might be getting cut adrift. Blackpool, a difficult day at Bristol City, a 2-0 defeat. Jerry Yates missed a real golden opportunity before Bristol City took the lead. But in the end, you can't argue with the game. Bristol City had more of the ball. They created lots more chances. But that one that Blackpool missed, will it come back to haunt them? You cannot afford to lose chances like that when you're in a relegation dogfight. For QPR, finally, for the first time since Neil Critchley's first game, they managed to get a win in a championship. It is Gareth Ainsworth's first against Chris Wilder on his first day. I wonder if he's under pressure already. But what a result for QPR. Puts them 10 clear of the relegation zone, but more so, got the fans back on side. It was a spirited, hard-fought performance. They created more chances in that game as well, by the way. But I just feel that will get the fans back on side. It was a very Gareth Ainsworth performance. And to be fair, you're looking ahead to the next few weeks now with the run of fixtures. And you wonder, is this a chance for QPR to push on? They haven't got the worst away record in the division this year. They've picked up nearly half of their points on the road. So do you know what? Despite Blackpool needing the points more arguably, we know they're going to be resolute defensively. We saw that against Burnley last week. But I'm going to go for QPR to nick it. Back-to-back 1-0 wins for Gareth Ainsworth. 1-0 to QPR, the visitors. On to the second one, which you have to say on paper is a little bit of a home banker. It is Millwall versus Swansea City. Millwall, incredibly good, have managed to get all 3 points away at Reading. They're one of the best home sides in the division. But from the penalty spot early on, they scored. And after that, very, very solid. It was possibly one of the worst games you could watch as a neutral. That penalty was the only shot on target. Reading had none. Millwall just had that one. And to be fair, there were only 8 shots in total in the game. It was a lot of very hard-fought midfield play. 29 fouls in the match in total. Lots of aerial duels, lots of work in the middle third. But at this stage of the season, it's not about looking pretty. It's about winning. And Millwall did that to keep themselves in the top 6. For Swansea, on the other hand, it all started well against Borough. They were really good first half. We've mentioned it so many times. The rate at which they collapse defensively, the type of goals they give away, the frequency of goals they give away, it's unforgivable at this level. And for Swansea, down to 17th now, 3 points off 20th, and they probably have to look over their shoulders because without getting that firepower in January, I know Perot scored, which is going to be important, but they've not got enough defensively. They've not got enough offensively. They didn't even have more than half the ball in that game. I mean, it's all going wrong for them. I look at this on paper, and I know that, of course, you get the odd strange result in the Championship. Swansea will have more of the ball in this game, there's no doubt. But Millwall at home are so strong, particularly in midweek. And I have to go for the stand of Millwall score. 2-0 to the host. The Den is going to be rocking. And you know what? They've got one hell of a chance at the playoffs now. To the other end of the table, though, it is Rotherham United versus Preston North End. Rotherham, a very disappointing day at Birmingham. Preston, though, a very good 2-0 win against Cardiff. One more than, of course, I predicted. If it wasn't for that 94th minute goal after the red card for Jack Hannock, I would have been celebrating winning the match day, but it wasn't to be. For Preston, though, a much-needed win gets them back into that top half. Still only 7 points off the playoffs, remarkably. Not one of their best displays, but their home form, we mentioned it, it's been poor all season. So really important for them to get the 3 points. For Rotherham, I thought they were going to grit their way to something away at Birmingham, but the game was over very early. You cannot gift goals in the first half against relegation rivals. It pushes Birmingham clear of them. They only managed one shot on target all game, and in the end, they can have no complaints about the way the game ended. So for me, I look at this with Rotherham 8 points above safety. Have they got to get 1 or 2 more wins just to make sure they don't get put into that mix? Well, it's going to be tricky against Preston. We know they're one of the best sides in the division away from home. When you combine that with the fact that they have managed to score a couple of goals at the weekend as well, I just don't see Rotherham winning this game. And I know it could well go the other way. They've had a couple of very good home performances. So fingers crossed for them, they're able to put in a good display. But I think Preston are going to nick this one. They're normally just too good away from home. I'm going to go 2-1 to the visitors. I'm actually predicting a few goals in that game, which I'm surprising myself with. Well, we mentioned it a bit earlier in the video jovially, but it is Chris Wilder's first home game for Watford next. They host Birmingham City on Tuesday night. And the question is serious. Is he under a bit of pressure already? Because they played against the most out-of-form team in the division. There's a reason they made that change before that game. And you know what? I know the football wasn't inspiring under Bilic. I know they weren't exciting to watch. I don't think they would have lost that game. I've got to be honest with you. For Watford, it was a terrible 1-0 defeat at QPR. It was a gutless performance. It was no change at all. It was against a side who had 1 victory in 20 though. And for Watford, that isn't good enough. For Birmingham, on the other hand, we just mentioned it. A really solid win against Rotherham. Got it done and dusted in the first half and then was solid. It's a tricky game to predict this because Birmingham do throw in the odd little spell of 2 or 3 games where you think, right, they're picking it up now. But I'm not sure it's going to be enough here. Watford have still got quality. They're still a good team at home. But I don't know. This is one of those games that could end up being 3-0 to Watford if they find their form under Wilder. But based on what we've seen in recent weeks, under both Bilic and now Wilder, and that upturn from Birmingham City, I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline. Watford have dropped a lot of points at home already. You could argue it's a must-win in terms of getting into the playoffs. There is no side in the top half that have drawn more games than Watford, and that is becoming a problem for them this season. We know Birmingham play defensively and cautiously away from home, particularly against those top sides. And I think they might be able to nick a goal and maybe nick a point. So 1-1, but don't be shocked if Chris Wilder's Watford come out firing. Next up is another very big game at the bottom. It is Wigan Athletic, penniless Wigan Athletic if we're to believe reports, against Coventry City. Wigan again, after a really good start under Sean Maloney, he did a great job to sort them out defensively and turn their fortunes around. But then delayed payment of player wages again and staff wages. It's just a bit of a circus off the pitch. And unfortunately, the statements coming out of the club don't do much to fill you with confidence. And of course now there are rumours swirling about administration potentially again. Such a shame given the way Wigan went out of the division last time, but you just feel like the fight was gone this weekend. They worked hard, they did what they could, but it's so hard to deal with a championship season anyway, when you're one of the lowest scorers, when you're one of the most out-of-form teams in the Division 2. But to have that when you've got players and staff not being paid on time and expecting to get the most out of them makes it a really tricky job for Sean Maloney. Add to that Coventry are in very good form, 6 unbeaten now, a 1-1 draw against Hull, maybe a tad disappointing, but does keep them in that playoff mix. And for Wigan, no shame in being beat at Burnley or West Brom, but they've got to start picking up points soon. They've got the worst home record in the division by a distance. They've conceded 31 goals at the DW as well. And for a Coventry side who, they're not the best on the road, but they were ruthless at Huddersfield and Rotherham recently. I just think they're going to have too much. The Wigan fight seems to be over. The fans are turning, which is probably going to affect things off the pitch, albeit they're still well behind the players. I'm going to go for Coventry to win it, and probably quite comfortably. Wigan 0, Coventry 2. The last of the 6 games on Tuesday night is one that maybe 2 games ago you would have said was a home banker. It is Middlesbrough versus Stoke City. But the big question is, where on earth has this Stoke side been? A brilliant 5-1 hammering of Sunderland, which you could put down to the Alex Neil effect. But 3-2 at home to Blackburn, a very good aggressive attacking display. And you're left asking where this side have been, because there is clear quality in that Stoke squad. There is clear firepower in that Stoke squad. You have to ask where the consistency is. For Borough, on the other hand, a few eyebrows were raised when they lost 2-0 at West Brom, but 8-1 aggregate score at home to Reading and away at Swansea, and they bounced back from 1-0 down last time as well, so showed that side of their game. Only 4 points behind Sheffield United now. We'll get to the reason why later on. But this is a game where if Borough win it, they are going to pile the pressure on the Blades for Wednesday night, and I think they're going to do it. I was umming and ahhing about scorelines here, but let's be honest, it got me my perfect score on Saturday, and it is Borough's favourite one. They could go and get more. It could be a game where Stoke fall off a cliff. And of course, they could well end up shocking us. But I'm going to go for the safe and sound Middlesbrough 3-1 win. It seems to be the Michael Carrick special, and I think he's going to serve it up again on Tuesday night. Well, on to Wednesday, and 2 sides coming off the back of defeats. Blackburn Rovers host Reading. Now, Reading, we know, are awful away from home, and at home in the last 2 against very tough opposition, they've not picked up any points. So again, with the threat of a points deduction and EFL charges, they are going to have to start looking over their shoulder here and just trying to pick up a few points. The one problem is, though, Blackburn are the second best team in the division at home. I know they lost 3-2 at Stoke after a brilliant run of form, but at Ewood Park, there is not a lot stopping them at the minute. They're still in the playoffs, they're still scoring goals. Remarkably, they've got a goal difference of 0, which is hilarious. But Blackburn have to win this game. They've got youth, they've got exuberance, they've got quality and pace in behind. And Reading are an ageing, organised side, but there's only so much they can do away from home. Second worst record in the division. Most goals conceded away from home in the division. It all points to a Blackburn win, doesn't it? I'm not going to go massive because Blackburn haven't been that free scoring in recent weeks. 3 of their last 6 games, they've won by 1-0. But I'm going to go for them to get one more than that. 2-0 Blackburn Rovers, and the weekend will just be a blip. On to another big game at both ends of the table, and it's Cardiff City against West Bromwich Albion. Cardiff still 1 place above the relegation zone, albeit still 6 points clear despite losing at Preston. And West Brom, another one of those organised disciplines, Carlos Corberán 1-0 victories, that time against Huddersfield after doing the same against Wigan. They're playing those sides down there, and albeit they've not been that ruthless, they have been able to get the wins. And at this stage, the points are important. Just 3 points off the playoffs and 2 places, whereas Cardiff are obviously looking in the other direction. It is 2 new managers who have done a fairly good job so far, and I'm not sure which one's going to come out on top. We know that most of Cardiff points have come at home this season, and we know that West Brom are probably better at home if we're being honest, only 19 points away all season. This is tricky. Do you know what? I think I'm going to have to sit on the fence here. I wouldn't be shocked if West Brom won 1-0 again. I certainly wouldn't be shocked if Cardiff nicked a 1-0. But I'm going to go in between. The Championship's favourite scoreline, Cardiff 1, West Brom 1. Well, the big games at both ends of the table keep coming because Huddersfield Town host Norwich City next, and both sides are off the back of a 1-0 defeat. Norwich in a Sunday lunchtime game against Sunderland where a poor first half cost them. The game sort of panned out in the way we expected during that first half, albeit without the same number of goals. And while you could argue they might have got an equaliser in the second, they can't complain really, because that poor first half, not dealing with the press of Sunderland, has ended up costing them the 3 points. Still in 7th, but it was a chance to go back in the playoffs. Whereas Huddersfield, they're not worrying about playoffs this year. They just want to get out of that relegation scrap. The Neil Warnock dream, it started against Birmingham. It has gone very wrong since then. 1 point, 9 goals conceded and none scored in their last 4. And it's a difficult situation for a side with fragile confidence because when they tried to come out and play against Coventry, they missed early chances and then fell to a 4-0 defeat. Whereas when they tried to sit back a little bit in the 2 following home games against Bristol City and away at West Brom, they only had 4 shots on target across the 2 and didn't really look like scoring. So it's a very tricky situation for Neil Warnock, this. It's the type of game where he's probably got to come out and play now. He's probably got to try and create chances. And for Norwich, they were in very good form before this game against Sunderland. And they've been scoring goals galore as well. In the 5 games prior to that 1-0 defeat, albeit they drew a blank away at Wigan, who, to be fair, might have set the blueprint for Huddersfield. They had managed to hit 11 goals in the other 4 games, and they look pretty decent away from home. So I'm not sure this is going to be the big runaway victory a lot of people are expecting. I would imagine a lot will be going for 3 and 4 nils, but for me it's going to be tight. I am going to bank on Huddersfield coming out and getting that goal, and Norwich City for me are going to win it. 2-1, they'll just do enough, but this game will not be as one-sided as people expect. Cue to 5-0 now, I'm sure. Let's move on to the next one as leaders Burnley head to Hull City. Hull got a very decent point away at a Coventry side who are normally so strong at home. And Burnley, well, that little blip against Blackpool did not last long. A 3-0 win at home to Wigan, 4 clean sheets in a row, 5 in 6 in all competitions. I mean, they're looking brilliant, aren't they? 17 points clear with 10 to go. I think Burnley could probably win maybe one more game and be just about there. I don't think many others are getting to 85 this season. For Hull City, on the other hand, a much better defensive team under Liam Rossini, we've mentioned it. A little blip away at Norwich, but otherwise 3 clean sheets and 1 conceded against Bristol City and Coventry. I don't think Burnley are going to go particularly wild in this game. I do think they're going to nick it, but I'm going to go for a more similar display to what we saw at, say, Luton or against Fleetwood in the FA Cup. I'm going to go for Burnley to have a lot of the ball, have a little bit of pressure and territory. But in the end, I think they'll only just nick it. I'm going to go by 1-0. Not one of the thrillers of midweek. On the subject of that though, let's move on to my team. Luton Town are in the penultimate game against Bristol City. A wonderful win for Luton away at Sheffield United, which even as a fan, I didn't really harbour any expectation of. It makes it 3 1-0 victories in the last 4 matches. Again, very good form, only 7 points off second place now. And given the budget that Luton work with, it's yet again an outstanding achievement this season. For Bristol City, I know they had a couple of off days, but they are finding their form in 2023. A good 2-0 home win against Blackpool. Andy Vyman back in the goals. I'm a big fan of his, and he's had a tough season in front of goal. So great to see him scoring. And Alex Scott got his first of the season as well. But the big question for me is, will they be able to cope defensively? Because 2 clean sheets in a row, they don't often keep 3. They normally have a shocker and then a couple of good games. And that's going to be the question here. Of course, it looks like injury will rob the Cal Naismith return, but Harry Cornick will be back at Kenilworth Road. And for Luton Town, under the lights, they've not been great at home all season, but under the lights, they still have a very good record of remaining unbeaten. So for Luton Town, I am going to be in attendance, and I'm going to go for them to nick it. But similar to the Burnley game, I don't think it will be great. I'm going to go for 1-0 to Luton Town. Well, if I get that prediction right, the timing of the goal could have a huge bearing on this last game. It is Sunderland versus Sheffield United. For Sheffield United, defeat at home to Luton, 2 1-0 defeats against promotion rivals in recent weeks. And you look at it now, with Borough 4 behind, with Luton 7 behind. If Borough win on Tuesday, if Luton get an early lead against Bristol City, will Sheffield United be nervous when they go out at 8 p.m? It was a very difficult display for them. Didn't really create a huge amount of chances, which I found quite surprising. A lot of their fans commented on it, the fact that they played relatively cautiously. They played in their shell a little bit at home. And I know Luton only had 1 shot on target. There wasn't much in the game. But when the onus is on the home side, and particularly when they're 1-0 down, you would have expected greater creativity than what we probably saw. So I'm not going to say that Sheffield United are out of it yet. I still think they're going to finish in that top 2. But it's certainly not all roses at Bramall Lane, and the fans starting to get a little bit nervy at the minute, which is only going to harm their cause if they struggle early on. What they'll probably be happy with, though, is the fact that they're away from home this midweek and they're going to Sunderland, a side who, unfortunately, are nowhere near the team at home that they are away from home. This season in the league, 23 points at home. By contrast, they picked up 6 more on the road, so we know where they'd rather the game be. Without that focal point up front, I know we mention it every week, but without Sims or Stewart, they've not got that focal point in attack. Now, away from home, it's fine. They've got quick players, they run in behind on the counter, and any team who comes out and tries to play football, they manage to press and get in behind plenty of times. When they're playing at home to other teams, though, it can be a little bit tricky. Obviously, they had a nightmare against Alex Neil with that 5-1 defeat last weekend. They were hit by that late hammer blow against Bristol City the week before at home. Oh, I'm not sure what to go for here. It's a tricky one to finish on, but for me, the Blades are going to win this game. Sunderland at home is not the same side. Sheffield United away from home are a side that you can definitely get excited about. 3rd best in the division, only 3 points off Burnley's record. I'm going to go for them to win it. And do you know what? I'm going to go pretty comfortably. I'll finish on a big scoreline: Sunderland 1, Sheffield United 3. Let's have a quick recap of what I've predicted for this fixture list then, and I've only had 2 teams down to score 3 goals this midweek. They are 2nd and 3rd place Sheffield United and Middlesbrough. Both of them I think will record 3-1 wins. I've gone for all of the top 7 to win. There's likely to be at least one shock in there, isn't there? And at the bottom, I am sensing trouble. I have gone for Wigan, Huddersfield and Blackpool, all to be beaten. Unfortunately, that will probably compound their misery if Cardiff pick up the point I expect. But those are just my predictions for this midweek. Do you agree with them or disagree? Let me know in the comment section and give me your predictions too, of course. It's arguably going to be a season-defining week as the run-in really starts to take shape now. And with an international break round the corner, it's going to be a tense couple of weeks for some sides if they fall away from their objectives. Are we going to see any more manager changes? If we do, we'll of course update you on the channel. You can find all of those playlists up in the eye above. Check out the matchday action from the game I went to yesterday. And of course, if you are in the US, do check out HelloFresh too. We've got a special coming later this weekend, looking ahead to non-league day, which is during that international break too. Thank you very much for watching. Your support, as always, is appreciated. We'll see you back here next time for another weekend of Championship predictions.